Daniel Carter yawned as he walked into the small control room of the SETI station, hidden in the mountains of New Mexico. The night shift always felt longer in winter. Outside, snow fell softly on the massive satellite dishes pointed at the stars. Inside, banks of computers hummed quietly, searching the skies for signs of intelligent life. "Anything interesting, Pete?" Daniel asked as he set down his lunch bag. Pete Jones, a thin man with thick glasses, shook his head. "Same old cosmic noise. Pulsars, quasars, and the occasional satellite. Nothing worth staying awake for." "Well, that's why we have coffee," Daniel said with a small smile. He had worked here for 3 years, and not once had they found anything noteworthy. Most days he wondered if they ever would. As Pete left, Daniel settled into the worn office chair and began his nightly routine. He checked the systems, calibrated the receivers, and prepared for 8 hours of staring at screens full of data that almost certainly wouldn't matter. His friends often asked why he didn't get a real job with his astronomy degree. He never had a good answer. Something about the possibility, however small, of being the first person to hear a voice from beyond Earth kept him coming back. The first 2 hours passed without incident. Daniel drank his coffee, ate his sandwich, and played a game on his phone when the monotony became too much. The radio telescope automatically scanned the sky, following pre-programmed patterns designed to cover as much of the cosmos as possible. At precisely 2:17 a.m., a soft beep caught his attention. One of the secondary monitors showed an unusual reading. Daniel put down his phone and rolled his chair over to investigate. The computer had flagged a signal coming from the direction of Neptune. At first glance, it looked like typical interference, perhaps a distant satellite or space probe sending data back to Earth, but something about the pattern seemed odd. Daniel typed in commands to analyze the signal more carefully. The computer processed the data and displayed a new graph. He frowned. The signal wasn't random. It showed clear repetition, mathematical sequences that couldn't occur naturally. His heart began to beat faster. He had seen false positives before, but this looked different. The signal had structure unlike anything in their database of known human transmissions. It wasn't just repeating. It was structured in a way that suggested language. "This can't be right," he whispered to the empty room. He ran more tests, filtering out background noise and enhancing the signal. With each analysis, the pattern became clearer. This wasn't cosmic background radiation or a glitchy satellite. This was intentional communication. Daniel's hands shook as he reached for the phone. Protocol required him to call his supervisor immediately for any potential first contact scenario. He dialed Dr. Olivia Mason's number, checking the clock only after he had pressed call. 2:43 a.m. The phone rang 5 times before a groggy voice answered. "This better be important, Carter." Dr. Mason's voice was thick with sleep. "Dr. Mason, I'm sorry for calling so late, but you need to see this." Daniel tried to keep his voice steady. "I've detected a signal that matches all our criteria for non-human intelligence." "Are you absolutely sure?" Her voice sharpened instantly. "Have you ruled out terrestrial sources?" "Yes, I've checked everything twice. It's coming from beyond Neptune's orbit, and it doesn't match any known human transmission patterns. The signal contains mathematical sequences that appear to be the foundation of a communication system." There was a long pause. When Dr. Mason spoke again, her voice was completely alert. "Don't tell anyone. Don't send any signals back. Don't leave. Your post, I'll be there in 30 minutes with the team." True to her word, Dr. Mason arrived at the facility in record time, accompanied by 2 other scientists Daniel had never seen before. They worked through the night, analyzing the signal from every possible angle. By sunrise, more people began to arrive. Government officials in dark suits, military personnel, and specialists from various agencies. "Carter, this is Dr. William Gray from NASA and Agent Samantha Diaz from National Intelligence," Dr. Mason said, introducing 2 of the new arrivals. Their expressions were grim. Dr. Gray, a tall man with silver hair, examined the data with increasing concern. "The signal definitely isn't ours. The patterns suggest a base 12 mathematical system, not something humans typically use." By noon, the small control room had become the center of a rapidly expanding operation. Equipment was brought in, additional receivers were set up, and a secure communication line was established with Washington. Daniel watched in awe as his mundane workplace transformed into what looked like a military command center. No one had explicitly confirmed his discovery yet, but the scale of the response told him everything he needed to know. After decades of searching the skies, humanity had finally received a message from the stars. "We need a team of linguists and cryptographers," Dr. Mason told Agent Diaz. "The best in the country." "Already on their way," Diaz replied. "The president has been briefed. This is now a matter of national security." Daniel felt dizzy. Just hours ago, he had been playing games on his phone to pass the time. Now, he was at the center of what might be the most important discovery in human history. The following days passed in a blur of activity. Daniel barely slept, running on caffeine and adrenaline as he worked alongside the growing team of experts. The best code breakers from the NSA joined forces with linguists from top universities. Astronomers pinpointed the exact origin of the signal, a moving point just beyond Neptune's orbit. On the third day, Dr. Gray called everyone to the main conference room. "We've broken the first layer of the message," he announced. The room fell silent. "It appears to be a form of introduction, followed by a declaration." He nodded to a young linguist who stood up nervously. "The message begins with what we believe is an identification," she explained. "It translates roughly to the Hezrian Empire, followed by coordinates that match our solar system. Then comes a phrase we interpret as claims by right of discovery." A chill ran through the room. "The next part is more concerning," she continued. "It refers to indigenous life and something called Directive 7. The final part mentions planetary conversion beginning in what we calculate to be about 30 days from when the message was sent." "So it's not a greeting," Daniel said quietly. "It's a notice of invasion." Agent Diaz nodded grimly. "And based on the signal's point of origin and movement, whatever sent this message is heading directly toward Earth." Dr. Mason looked around the room. "What we've learned stays in this facility. Panic won't help anyone. We have a month to figure out who these Hezrians are and what we're going to do about them." As people began discussing next steps, Daniel stepped outside for a moment. The night sky stretched above him, beautiful and terrifying in a way it had never been before. Somewhere out there, an alien empire had set its sights on Earth, unaware that humans had intercepted their plans. For the first time in history, humanity knew it wasn't alone in the universe. But instead of the peaceful first contact everyone had hoped for, they faced an existential threat from the stars, and time was running out. 1 week after the discovery of the alien message, the United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting. For the first time in history, representatives from every nation on Earth gathered in one room, their usual disagreements forgotten, in the face of a common threat. Susan Wright, the newly appointed Secretary of Defense, took a deep breath as she prepared to address the assembly. At 45, she had never expected to be the one telling the world about aliens. Her hands trembled slightly as she arranged her notes. The room buzzed with nervous conversations in dozens of languages. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Thank you for coming on such short notice. What I'm about to tell you will change our understanding of humanity's place in the universe." The room grew quiet. 7 days ago, a SETI station in New Mexico detected a signal from deep space. After careful analysis, we have confirmed it was not of human origin. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some people looked shocked, others skeptical. "The message was not directed at us," Susan continued. "It appears to be a communication between alien scouts and their main fleet. They did not expect us to intercept or decode it." She pressed a button, and a translation of the message appeared on the large screen behind her. "The Hezrian Empire claims this star system by right of discovery. All indigenous life will be processed according to Directive 7. Planetary conversion begins in 30 rotations." The murmurs turned to gasps and exclamations. Based on the movement of the signal's source, we estimate we have 23 days before the main Hezrian fleet arrives. Our scientists believe they use a form of faster-than-light travel, which explains how they could reach us from beyond our solar system in such a short time. How do we know this isn't a hoax? Called out the representative from Russia. Susan gestured to the side of the stage, where Daniel Carter and Dr. Olivia Mason waited, nervously. Dr. Mason will explain the technical details of how we verified the signal. Dr. Mason approached the podium, her usual lab coat replaced by a formal suit that seemed to make her uncomfortable. The signal contains mathematical sequences that could not occur naturally, she explained, showing charts and data on the screen. It uses a base 12 number system completely unlike human mathematics. Most importantly, we triangulated its origin using telescopes from 3 continents. It came from a moving object beyond Neptune that doesn't match any known celestial body. As Dr. Mason returned to her seat, the room erupted in questions. Susan raised her hands for quiet. "We face a threat unlike anything in human history," she said firmly. "But we have one crucial advantage. The Hezrians don't know we intercepted their message. They expect to arrive and find a planet of unaware primitives. We have the element of surprise." "What do you propose we do?" asked the Secretary General. "Our weapons cannot possibly compete with a civilization capable of interstellar travel." Susan nodded to a thin man with untidy hair who sat in the front row. "This is Dr. Kevin Walsh, one of our leading physicists. He has developed a possible strategy." Kevin walked to the podium with the awkward gait of someone who spent more time with equations than people. He adjusted his glasses nervously. "The Hezrians clearly consider us technologically primitive," he began. "Based on their communication patterns, they likely believe we haven't even achieved basic space travel, let alone detected their approach." He loaded a new presentation on the screen. "We can't fight them directly, but we can show them that we are more advanced than they think, that we can be dangerous if provoked." His next slide showed a diagram of Earth's orbital path, with a point marked beyond Mars. "I propose we use our nuclear weapons not to attack, but to send a message. By detonating multiple warheads in a precise pattern in deep space, we can create an artificial light burst visible across our solar system. The pattern will form a mathematical response in their own number system. A clear statement that says we detected their message, we understand their intentions, and we are prepared to fight back." The chamber went silent as the implications sank. "And you want to set off nuclear bombs in space?" the Chinese representative asked incredulously. "Not as weapons," Kevin explained. "As a communication tool. The pattern of detonations will spell out a warning in the language of mathematics, something any advanced species would understand." "How many nuclear weapons would this require?" asked the French representative. "All of them," Kevin replied bluntly. "Every nuclear warhead on Earth, deployed in a specific geometric arrangement." The room exploded in protests. Susan stepped back to the podium. "I know how this sounds," she said loudly, cutting through the noise. "But consider the alternative. If we do nothing, the Hezrians will arrive and, based on their message, either enslave or eliminate us. This plan gives us a chance to establish communication before they attack. And what makes you think they would hesitate rather than just destroy us immediately?" the British representative asked. Dr. Mason returned to the microphone. "The Hezrians' message shows they value efficiency. Their language patterns suggest they categorize worlds and follow standard protocols. If they encounter unexpected resistance or evidence of greater technological advancement than anticipated, their protocols likely require reassessment. In other words," Susan added, "they're bureaucrats. If we surprise them enough, they'll have to stop and reconsider." Discussions continued for hours. Scientists presented more evidence about the signal. Military leaders outlined the logistics of Kevin's plan, and intelligence analysts offered their interpretations of the Hezrian message. As day turned to night, the debate grew more focused. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by the grim reality of their situation. When Susan called for a vote, the result was nearly unanimous. "Then it's settled," she announced. "Operation Lighthouse will begin immediately. All nations will pool their resources, knowledge, and nuclear arsenals. After the meeting, Susan found Kevin staring out a window at the night sky. "Do you really think this will work?" she asked quietly. He didn't look away from the stars. "Honestly, I don't know. But it's better than waiting to be conquered." "The president wants to address the public tomorrow," Susan said. "When should we tell people the truth?" Kevin considered this. "Not until we're ready to launch. Mass panic won't help anyone. Let the world enjoy a few more days of normal life." Susan nodded slowly. "It's strange. All our wars, all our differences, none of it matters anymore." "Perhaps that's the silver lining," Kevin replied. "It took an alien invasion to remind us we're all just humans." As they walked back to the conference room where teams were already beginning to plan the details of humanity's response, Susan hoped that humanity would still exist long enough to remember this moment of unity. The countdown had begun. 10 days later, the air inside NASA's largest hangar crackled with tension. Hundreds of engineers, scientists, and military personnel moved with purpose between workstations. At the center of this controlled chaos stood the USS Constitution, a spacecraft that had never been meant for the public eye. Captain Alan Reeves walked around the ship, inspecting every detail. At 42, he had spent his entire adult life in the Air Force, flying experimental aircraft and later commanding secret space missions. But nothing had prepared him for this. "She wasn't supposed to be revealed for another 3 years," said General Frank Harris, falling into step beside him. "The Constitution was designed for long-range solar system exploration. Now she's humanity's last hope." Alan nodded. The Constitution had been built in secret, part of a classified military space program that officially didn't exist. Only a handful of people knew about it before the Hezrian message changed everything. "How's the retrofit coming?" Alan asked. "Your engineer is a miracle worker," the general replied. "Dr. Park has managed to modify the payload bay to carry all the warheads, but she's not happy about the radiation shielding." They walked to the other side of the hangar where Lisa Park was arguing with a group of nuclear specialists. At 35, she was younger than most of her colleagues, but her reputation as a brilliant engineer had earned her the position of chief engineer on this mission. "The shielding won't hold up for more than a few hours after detonation," she was saying. "The radiation levels will be off the charts." She noticed Alan and straightened up. "Captain Reeves, these gentlemen seem to think we can just pop back home after setting off hundreds of nuclear weapons in space." Alan exchanged a look with the general. "Dr. Park, can I speak with you privately?" They walked a short distance away. "Lisa, you know this is a one-way mission," Alan said quietly. Her face remained neutral, but her eyes widened slightly. "I suspected as much. The math doesn't lie. The radiation burst will fry our systems even if we're at the minimum safe distance for the detonation sequence." "The crew hasn't been told yet," Alan said. "Only volunteers who understand the risks will go." Lisa looked back at the Constitution. "Well, I'm in. Someone has to make sure those warheads detonate in the right pattern, or this whole plan fails." Alan squeezed her shoulder. "Thank you. The fate of Earth may depend on people like you." 3 days later, a crew of 20 stood in front of the Constitution. Each had been selected for their specific skills and had volunteered after being told they would likely never return. They represented 12 different countries, a truly global effort. Alan addressed them with simple honesty. "You all know why we're here. In 1 week we launch. 3 days after that we reach the deployment zone. We will place the nuclear payload in the exact formation Dr. Walsh has calculated. When the warheads detonate, they will create a light pattern visible across our solar system." He paused, looking at each face. "This light show has one purpose: to tell the Hezrians that we see them coming, we understand their technology better than they think, and we're ready to defend ourselves. If it works, they might stop and reconsider. If it fails..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. "I won't lie to you. The radiation from the detonation will damage our ship beyond repair. We have supplies for a month, but no way to return to Earth. Each of you has written letters to your families explaining your choice. Those letters will be delivered after launch." Lisa stepped forward. I've made some modifications to our communication system. Even after the main systems fail, we should be able to transmit basic messages back to Earth for several days. We'll be able to tell them if the Hezrians respond. The next week passed in a blur of final preparations. While the Constitution crew trained and checked systems, Earth prepared for possible invasion. Military forces worldwide were placed on high alert, civilians were kept in the dark to prevent panic, and astronomers monitored deep space for any sign of the approaching Hezrian. Fleet launch day arrived cold and clear. The Constitution was moved to a remote launch site in the desert. No press, no crowds, just a skeleton crew of essential personnel. The official story was a routine satellite deployment. Inside the spacecraft, Alan strapped himself into the captain's chair. Lisa sat at the engineering console running final checks. Around them, the rest of the crew prepared for launch. "All systems are green," reported Ryan Miller, the young navigation officer. "Ready when you are, Captain." Alan took a deep breath. "Mission Control, this is Constitution, we are go for launch." "Constitution, this is Mission Control. You are cleared for launch. Godspeed." The countdown reached 0, and the powerful engines roared to life. The Constitution rose from Earth, gathering speed as it climbed through the atmosphere. Within minutes, they were in orbit. Within hours, they had left Earth's gravity behind. The journey to the deployment zone took 3 days. They traveled in silence, each crew member lost in their own thoughts. Some wrote additional messages to their families. Others spent time in the observation deck, looking back at the blue marble of Earth growing smaller behind them. On the 3rd day, they reached the designated coordinates, a point in space beyond Mars but still within clear view of incoming ships from the outer solar system. "We've arrived at the deployment zone," Ryan announced. "Positioning is perfect." "Lisa, begin warhead deployment," Alan ordered. Lisa's fingers danced across her console. Releasing payload bay doors. Deployment sequence initiated. One by one, the nuclear warheads were released into space. Small thrusters on each device moved them into precise positions, forming a 3-dimensional geometric pattern thousands of miles across. "Deployment complete," Lisa reported after several hours. "All warheads are in position and reporting ready." Alan looked at the main screen where a simulation showed the pattern they had created. It resembled a giant constellation, precisely, arranged to form specific mathematical ratios when the detonations occurred. "Any sign of the Hezrians?" he asked. Ryan checked his sensors. "Yes, sir. We're detecting unusual energy signatures at the edge of our sensor range. They're moving fast, much faster than anything we've seen before. They'll be here within hours." "They're early," Alan said grimly. "We need to act now." He opened the ship-wide communication system. "Attention all crew. The Hezrian fleet has been detected approaching our solar system. We are moving to Phase 2 immediately. Secure all stations for radiation surge." The crew worked quickly, activating additional shielding around vital systems and preparing for the massive electromagnetic pulse that would follow detonation. "All stations secure," Lisa reported. "Detonation sequence is ready." Alan looked around. At his crew, 20 brave men and women who had volunteered to die for Earth. "It has been my greatest honor to serve with you. Let's make this count." He pressed his palm against the biometric scanner. "Captain Alan Reeves, authorizing nuclear detonation sequence." Lisa did the same. "Chief Engineer Lisa Park, confirming." "Authorization." The computer accepted their commands. Detonation sequence initiated. 10 seconds to detonation. The crew stood in silence as the countdown reached 0. Outside, in the cold vacuum of space, hundreds of nuclear warheads exploded. Simultaneously, the blast created a flash of light brighter than anything humans had ever produced. A miniature sun that formed a perfect pattern, visible even from Earth. In mathematical language that any advanced civilization would understand, humanity had sent its message. "We see you. We know your intentions. We have the power to destroy. We offer peace instead." The world held its breath for 3 days after the nuclear detonation. In every major city, people gathered around televisions and radios waiting for news. Military bases around the globe remained on high alert. Underground bunkers filled with government officials and key scientists. Everyone asked the same question. Had the plan worked? Aboard the damaged Constitution, the situation was dire. The massive radiation burst had fried most of their systems, just as Lisa had predicted. Life support functioned at minimal levels. Communication systems barely worked. The crew drifted in orbit, watching and waiting. "Anything yet?" Alan asked, his voice hoarse from the dry, recycled air. Ryan shook his head, adjusting the makeshift antenna he had rigged from spare parts. "Nothing on any frequency we can monitor. Either they haven't responded or we can't pick it up." Lisa worked nearby, trying to keep their remaining systems online. Her hands were wrapped in torn pieces of uniform to protect against burns from overheating equipment. "Power reserves down to 17%, she reported. "We have maybe 2 days of life support left." Alan nodded, his face grim. He had known this was a suicide mission, but dying slowly in space while wondering if their sacrifice had meant anything, that was harder than he had imagined. "Keep scanning," he ordered. "If they're coming, we need to warn Earth." On Earth, in the underground command center beneath the Pentagon, Susan Wright paced nervously. It had been her call to approve the mission. Now, with spotty communications from the Constitution and no sign of the Hezrian response, doubt gnawed at her. Kevin sat hunched over a computer terminal, analyzing data from deep space telescopes. "Anything?" Susan asked for perhaps the 100th time. "Nothing definitive," Kevin replied, rubbing his tired eyes. "Wait." He leaned closer to the screen. "There's something new." A large energy signature just appeared at the edge of Neptune's orbit. "Is it them?" Susan's heart raced. Kevin's fingers flew across the keyboard. "It's not following the same trajectory as the scout ship. It's heading directly for Earth, and it's massive." Susan grabbed the secure phone. "Get me the president, now." As governments around the world prepared for the worst, a tired-looking Ryan Miller suddenly sat up straight in his seat aboard the Constitution. "Captain, I'm picking up a signal. He adjusted his headphones, his eyes widening. "It's directed at us, specifically at us." The remaining crew gathered around the communications station. "Can you decode it?" Alan asked. Ryan nodded slowly. "It's using the same mathematical pattern as their original message, but, sir, they're responding in our language, in English." "Put it through," Alan ordered. A strange, slightly mechanical voice filled the bridge of the dying spacecraft. "Human vessel, this is Commander Eshal of the Hezrian Diplomatic Corps. Your demonstration has been noted. Directive 7 has been suspended, pending further evaluation. Stand by for contact." For a moment, no one spoke. Then the crew erupted in cheers and tears. Their gamble had worked. With the last of their power, they transmitted the message back to Earth. Hours later, as the Constitution's systems failed one by one, they watched through viewport windows as an enormous ship appeared in the distance. Many times larger than any human vessel. "Look at the size of that thing," whispered Ryan in awe. Instead of weapons, the alien ship extended what appeared to be a docking tube toward the Constitution. Lisa's radiation-damaged systems suddenly came back online. They're fixing our ship," she said in disbelief, looking at her readings. Remotely, the same mechanical voice came through their communication system again. "Your vessel is being stabilized. Prepare for retrieval." Alan looked at his crew. "I guess we're about to meet the neighbors." 1 week later, the enormous Hezrian mothership entered Earth orbit. Television broadcasts worldwide showed the vessel, a sleek silver structure that stretched nearly 10 miles from end to end. Smaller craft detached from it, landing at designated sites around the globe. At the United Nations headquarters in New York, world leaders gathered to meet the Hezrian representatives. Susan and Kevin sat in the front row, watching as Commander Eshal entered the chamber. The alien was both familiar and strange, humanoid in basic shape, but with blue-tinted skin, large, multifaceted eyes, and a crest of what looked like feathers along the top of its head. It wore what appeared to be a uniform of shifting metallic fabric. Behind Eshal walked the crew of the Constitution, alive and healthy, to the astonishment and joy of everyone present. "People of Earth," Ezal began, its voice translated through a small device at its throat. "I speak on behalf of the Hezrian Empire, which spans 1,000 star systems across this region of the galaxy." The room was completely silent. "For 7,000 years we have expanded across the stars, following protocols established by our ancestors. Each new world is categorized based on its technological development. Yours was classified as Class 3, intelligent, but primitive." Ezhal gestured to a holographic display that appeared beside it, showing what looked like a filing system. Class 3 worlds are typically absorbed into the Empire with minimal resistance. Resources are harvested, indigenous species are relocated to labor colonies, and planets are terraformed to Hezrian standards. Murmurs of anger and fear spread through the assembly. Ezhal raised a 6-fingered hand. "This has been our way for millennia. However, your species has done something unprecedented. No Class 3 civilization has ever detected our advanced communications. None has ever responded before we arrived. And certainly none has demonstrated the ability to deploy weapons in a mathematically precise pattern visible across your solar system." The alien seemed almost impressed. "Your warning device showed not only technological capability beyond your classification, but also an understanding of mathematical principles we thought unique to advanced species. Most importantly, it showed unity of purpose that few civilizations achieve even after joining the Empire." Ezal touched its translation device, adjusting something. "After consultation with the Imperial Council, your world has been reclassified as Class 1, potential equals. This has not happened in 7,000 years." The tension in the room eased slightly. "As such, standard protocols no longer apply. Instead of conquest, we offer alliance. Earth may join the Galactic Council as a protectorate state. You will maintain independence while gaining access to Hezrian technology, trade networks, and protection." Susan stood up. "And what do you get in return?" "A valuable ally," Ezhal replied. "Your species has demonstrated remarkable innovation and adaptability, rare traits in our experience. We believe you have much to offer the Empire." The negotiations continued for weeks. Earth representatives, led by Susan and with Kevin as scientific advisor, worked to secure the best possible terms for humanity's entry into a much larger galactic community. Meanwhile, Daniel Carter watched it all unfold from his small apartment in New Mexico. His discovery had changed human history forever. A simple night shift at a quiet SETI station had led to humanity's greatest leap forward. On his coffee table sat an invitation to the White House, where he would receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Beside it was a job offer from the newly formed Earth-Hezrian Cultural Exchange Program. As he watched the news showing Hezrian ships helping to clean Earth's oceans and repair environmental damage, Daniel smiled. The alien invasion had turned into the greatest opportunity humanity had ever known, all because they had intercepted a single message and found the courage to respond. In the years that followed, Earth changed dramatically. Hezrian technology helped solve energy crises, climate change, and disease. Human creativity and innovation spread throughout the Empire, bringing fresh perspectives to a civilization grown complacent after millennia of unchallenged expansion. The same qualities that had nearly made humanity victims, curiosity, determination, and the willingness to risk everything when backed into a corner, had instead made them valued partners in a vast interstellar community. And it had all started with one person noticing an unusual signal in the night sky.